Before we begin, hold on to a simple question. The kind that sounds harmless until you realize it isn't. Is it possible to love war without loving destruction? Not the political slogans, not the uniforms, not the flags, just the experience itself, the raw pressure, the feeling that life becomes sharper, more real, more honest under threat. And if someone does love that experience, what does that mean about him? What does it mean about the world that had produced him? Because the man we are talking about today lived exactly on that knife edge. He crossed 2 world wars, was wounded again and again, 14 times by some accounts, won Germany's highest decoration of the First World War, survived the collapse of an empire, the humiliation of defeat, the feverish politics of the Weimar years, the rise of Nazism, the occupation of Paris, the fall of the Reich, and then kept living long enough to watch the 20th century turn into history. He died in 1998, more than 100 years old. His name was Ernst Jünger. If you are expecting a clean moral shape here, hero or villain, prophet or monster, adjust your expectations now. Jünger does not think. He was not a Nazi, and that matters. But he was not also a liberal, not a pacifist, and not innocent in the way we sometimes need people to be innocent in order to categorize them neatly. He wrote what many consider one of the most honest frontline memoirs of the First World War, Storm of Steel, a book praised for its clarity and truthfulness and attacked for its coldness, even for the way it seems to aestheticize violence. He described bodies stacked like geological layers. He named the bombardment a storm of steel. He wrote about battle with a tone that can almost feel clinical. And decades later, in occupied France, he recorded in his own words the bureaucratic execution of a German deserter, down to the paper target pinned over the man's heart and the fly that kept returning to his cheek. That combination is the tension that carries this entire story. A man who insists on looking, even when looking makes him morally difficult to recognize. And the real hook is this. Jünger loved a world that no longer existed. But what world was that exactly? The world of cavalry and chivalry? The world of personal courage measured face to face? Or the deeper belief that war could still be a proving ground for the soul, a place where values sharpen instead of dissolving? Because what he finds on the Somme is not romantic heroism, it is industrial mutual annihilation. And what he finds in Paris is not tragic grandeur, it is a moral bureaucracy. The story is not really about battles, it is about transformation. The moment the machine takes over, the moment the individual begins to vanish inside mobilized energy, and the strange kind of man who can witness that and still keep writing. And the truth is, this story does not start with gunfire. It starts with a young man bored by ordinary life, restless and hungry for intensity, who goes looking for a war before war even finds him. Jünger was born in 1895, in a Europe that still believed itself civilized in a confident and self-congratulatory way. The old order looked stable from the outside. Empires, uniforms, hierarchies, families that expected predictable lives. But inside that order, certain young men felt suffocated by the very stability everyone else celebrated. Jünger was a poor student not because he lacked intelligence, but because the structure of school felt like a cage. He read travel stories late into the night, deserts, jungles, expeditions, stories where identity was not handed to a man by a classroom or a career path but wrestled from the world under pressure. In 1913, he did something that sounds almost unreal in hindsight. He took his school money, bought a revolver, went to Verdun, and illegally joined the French Foreign Legion. His father eventually intervened through official channels and brought him home. But he returned not reformed, only restless. And then the war came, and for him, war felt like salvation. At first, war still looks almost ordinary. It looks like trains and timetables and meals, coffee and bread at a station, a valley seen through a window. In the earliest moments, the world has not fully changed shape yet, but slowly the landscape begins to rot at the edges. Houses are destroyed, bridges are blown, crops rot in fields, doors and windows hang open as if the people inside left in the middle of a sentence. Machinery rusts where it stopped, and always there is the distant rumble, the vibration that becomes the permanent background of existence. You can feel the war arriving before you see it. Jünger watches this new world with a particular kind of attention, cold, precise, unwilling to look away. When shells begin to fall and men die, he records not only the confusion around him, but also his own reaction, something close to thrilling curiosity at violence from a hidden enemy. He struggles with discipline and authority, yet he wants to be closer to the front, not farther. He applies for officer training partly because he wants status, partly because he wants a name, and partly because he wants escape. Escape from the grinding anonymity of trench life and from the sense that the individual is being swallowed by the collective. And that phrase matters, because even early on Jünger seems to sense what the 20th century is going to do to people. Compress them, standardize them, use them, and then replace them. His writing style is remarkably unromantic. He does not code things in noble language or add speeches he never heard. When he walks over shattered grounds and sees mutilated bodies, he notes the absence of disgust in himself. That is not a brag, it is a confession. He describes a German officer walking upright through shellfire, while a crouching soldier beside him is killed by shrapnel. And he reflects on the grotesque arithmetic of chance. At times, his nerves fail him completely, pale, senseless with fear. Later, he looks back and shakes his head as if he cannot recognize the man he was in that moment. The pattern repeats again and again: cold observation, sudden vulnerability, fascination followed by fear. The deeper realization appears slowly. Jünger once swore to be a personal duel, courage tested face to face. But the war he encounters is increasingly impersonal. Masses of men who rarely see each other are killed by artillery that they cannot fight back against. The individual is not a hero, but a component. On the Somme, that transformation becomes unmistakable. Guillemot. By the time Jünger arrives there, the landscape has been reduced to ruin. Shells have plowed the earth as far as the eye can see. You could search in vain for one blade of grass. Roads are obliterated. Landmarks vanish. Soldiers follow white tape across fields because nothing else remains. Sunken lanes become gutters filled with corpses. At dawn, he looks over the battlefield and sees a carpet of German dead behind him and a carpet of British dead ahead. Not triumph, not heroism, just industrial mathematics. This is where his earlier hunger begins to look like a misunderstanding. Jünger wanted a war of courage and encounter, But the war he finds is something else entirely. A war where individuals disappear inside enormous systems. A war where survival belongs to whoever adapts faster to the logic of industrial killing. Soldiers survive by going underground, literally. Beneath ruined villages are labyrinths of dugouts housing hundreds of men. The world above ground becomes uninhabitable. War that once imagined itself as open-air heroism now turns soldiers into subterranean creatures living beneath the earth. Jünger is wounded again and again during the war, and those wounds matter not just as biography, but as pressure. At times, the armor of indifference he builds begins to crack, and fear overwhelms him. Yet, he keeps returning. He becomes known for leading dangerous patrols into enemy trenches and for describing battle in language that is both exhilarating and unsettling. With pistol in one hand, grenade in the other, knife between his teeth, he writes about the fever of the hunt. It is not a simply bravado, it is a worldview, the belief that danger clarifies life, stripping away fear and revealing something like freedom. After the war, he revises Storm of Steel many times. He shortens, comments, refines. The book becomes controversial, some readers see it as a glorified war, others as brutally honest because it includes fear and failure. It refuses to tell the reader what to think, and Jünger himself does not remain only a soldier or memoirist. He becomes a thinker of modernity, writing about pain, technology, and the strange relationship human beings develop with suffering in a world where traditional values are dissolving. One of his most unsettling ideas is that the modern technology trains us to see differently. Photography, he writes, creates an eye outside sensitivity. Recording the bullet in flight or the moment an explosion tears a man apart. Technology makes perception colder, more distant. That thought returns with unbearable force in Paris. In 1941, the city is occupied. German flags hang from French buildings. Curfews and rationing define daily life. Jünger serves there as an intelligence officer, gathering information about resistance activity while moving through a strange moral atmosphere. Officers, artists, books, and conversations about culture while war continues outside. Then, he is ordered to attend the execution of a German soldier condemned to death for desertion. He considers reporting sick, but decides instead to attend, partly from curiosity. On the day itself, the condemned man arrives with guards and a priest. The sentence is read. A doctor pins a red piece of cardboard over the man's heart. The firing squad raises its rifles. Jünger forces himself to watch. The volley rings out. 5 small dark holes appear in the cardboard. For a moment, the man remains upright, mouth opening as if trying to form a final word. Then his knees collapse and he falls. On the drive back, Jünger sinks into a deep depression. The doctor explains the dying gestures are mere reflexes. Jünger does not accept that explanation. He records the moment with painful precision. And here, the tension becomes clear. Jünger can see horror with microscopic clarity. But what does he do with that clarity? He records it. He observes. He remains the witness. Which brings us to the deeper meaning of this story. It is not simply about bravery or ideology. It is about what happens when a man who believes war reveals the essence of humanity encounters a war that is no longer fully human. The old European imagination, where courage was personal and honor could be tested face to face, collapses. In its place appears a mechanized world where death becomes industrial, bureaucratic, procedural, and the individual begins to disappear into systems larger than themselves. The soldier who loved a world that no longer existed. Not a sentimental world of manners, but a universe where the individual still mattered in the old way. Guillemot shows him that landscapes can be erased and men can vanish in storms of steel. Paris shows him that civilization can drink wine in elegant rooms while executing a man by schedule in a forest clearing. So the final question remains: was Jünger resisting dehumanization by witnessing it honestly, refusing comforting illusions? Or was he something more unsettling? A man who learned to breathe inside dehumanization and never fully rejected it. Perhaps the most disturbing possibility is this: Jünger may not only be a historical figure, he may be a mirror, because the modern world trains us to watch, to absorb destruction at a distance, to develop what he once called an invulnerable eye. And once you possess that eye, it becomes harder to know where witnessing ends and complicity begins. The storm of steel was not only an episode in history, it was the birth of a new world. Hi guys, I'm Arthur, the creator of War Never Changes. I hope you've liked this video. Please consider subscribing to my channel, leaving your like, and also to activate the bell for notifications so you can see our newest videos, right? As you guys already know, I'm a Brazilian medical student, and my dream, my quest, is for the revalidation in the US, to be a US doctor, right? Via the USMLE steps. But for that purpose, I need money, and I don't have money, so here am I. And for that purpose, I'm selling my newest ebook. It is called Love in No Man's Land: 9 True Love Stories from the First World War, right? It contains two main editions. The collector's edition, which contains the main book with one additional war love story, the 10th story, right? It also has exclusive artwork for all of our war love stories. You also get a customized 100 pages notebook for War Never Changes. You also get an insignia, the War Lover insignia. So it proves that you fought with me in this first phase project, right? And it also has some private intel. Private intel number 1. What does it contain? I cannot tell you because it is private, confidential. Only those who buy it will know. This edition, it contains only 2,500 units left, so you should run, you should buy it fast, right? Please consider buying it. But if you don't want to buy it, shame on you, actually. But it also has a standard edition. It costs only $10, and it contains the main book with 9 more love stories. So if you're interested, please consider checking the description below, the link for the book. And I hope I see you in the next videos. So thank you once more, and always remember, war never changes.